Okay, shh. Listen to this. This is the tape I found downstairs.
This is Professor Raymond Nogan, Department of Ancient History, log entry number 2. I believe I have made a significant find.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Don't you blame the movies! Movies don't create psychos! Movies make psychos more creative!
We have such sights to show you.
Join us! Join us! Who's laughing now? I'm gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, it has been a long time coming. The last episode we did of the podcast was Hollow Man, episode 21, and we are back kicking things back into high gear here for December to Dismember with episode 22, where we're going to be covering Michael Dougherty's Krampus. Luke, it's been a hell of a year, man. I mean, not to sit here and do the whole recap, but, you know, we went from Hollow Man to making a short film to getting it into a festival to then getting into our own festival, like to cover as far as Fantastic Fest, to then, you know, obviously all the other junk we had to do with, you know, this December to Dismember prepping. And then, of course, Splatterthon being the big thing that it was. It's just, things went nuts, and yeah, we kept saying we're going to come back and do this, and finally we made it happen with Krampus. So how you feel to be back in the saddle, sir?
You know, we've done a lot since our last podcast, and you know, it took a lot of willpower, it took a lot of creativity, I would say, on our end. You know, not to pat ourselves on the back too much, because let's be honest here, we could thank ourselves if we want to, but in all actuality here, that the only person we can thank is Kevin Bacon, because I mean, once we did Hollow Man, we were just riding that Kevin Bacon high, and we were sparked with creativity, and we said, you know what, we have to get out here and create a short film so that one day Kevin Bacon will be in a future film of ours, and I think we're on that path. So I'm really excited to be back here on the podcast doing Krampus. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Trick or Treat, but even more excited to you know, once we get this in the bag, obviously we do have a sit down with Kevin Bacon at the beginning of the year. Not to break too much news out there. Obviously, this will be on Bloody Disgusting. They'll pick it up. But, you know, so I'm so excited to see what 2024 holds for us.
I know we're bringing him on as another editor, so he'll be sitting next to Adrian there.
He's got to earn his spot.
Yeah, he might show up on camera every once in a while. But yes, I'm happy to be back here, man. I know this has definitely been something we've been wanting to talk about Krampus ever since we started last year. I know we went for the whole Killer Santa thing, and I think this was probably the big catalyst for why we chose All the Creatures Were Stirring for this year's theme. Because, yeah, I mean, this is just one of those movies, dude, that just, like, as far as not only creature features go, but as far as holiday horrors go, I mean, this is A+. This is one of those ones that I fell in love with when I went to see it in theaters, and yeah, it always has stuck with me since. And it's one that I can't go a single Christmas without watching.
It's absolutely essential holiday horror viewing, I think. You know, and I believe, what is this, PG-13?
It is,
because, you know, this is something that I think, you know, it is very Gremlins like, I think, you know, where you can sit down with the family and have a lot of fun with this. If you want to show everyone it's not too offensive, it's not overly gory in any sense, you know. I think this is a fun film to actually turn on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, whatever. Really get you in the spirit, you know, and make sure that you're on the nice list and you're filled with Christmas spirit, or else old Krampus will come get you with his gingerbread men.
Oh yeah, and you know, this was something that when it got announced, I was really looking forward to it. You know, I think, like, for me, it was definitely one of those where Michael Dougherty, I loved him from Trick or Treat. I saw that when my dad rented it, you know, from Netflix, and that was just something that he kept up with after, because I think it was Yahoo back in the day. Yahoo, anybody remember that? The email service. They had their own, like, news page, everything. He used to use that, and they would always do, like, movie trailers all the time, like on Fridays. And so he saw the Trick or Treat trailer and got hooked on it and rented it. And then that's when Michael Dougherty came into my life. So when I heard that the Trick or Treat guy was doing a Christmas movie, I was like, oh shit, this is cool. And then it's called Krampus. And I didn't know anything about Krampus at the time. So I had to start looking into it. And the lore of Krampus, it is ancient, but it is also one of those things where it's like, it is so interesting. It is so intriguing. And I think that even before this film, the buzz around Krampus, especially in today's modern era, was just starting to build and starting to build. And people were really starting to accept it as kind of the darker side, more grown up side of Christmas. And then even now, like you could definitely have little kids who they know who Krampus is. You know, they know who Krampus is. They know who Santa Claus is. And you know, I think that it's just kind of become this widely accepted thing. And again, it's not. I guess maybe if you live in Austria and you actually celebrate it how it's supposed to be, you know, it's probably scary. But you know, for us in the States here, he's just kind of a new modern, you know, Christmas icon. I would say kids love him, adults love him. Like I wore this Cavity Color shirt that I got. I got it with the Black Friday sale. They restocked it. Thankfully, I got my 3X. I did my thing. First day I wore it out, I got so many compliments on it just from people being, I love your shirt. I love Krampus. I love all that. And it's like whether it was the movie or just the icon himself. So it's like to me, Krampus is just, he's taken over. He has become a staple of the Christmas season.
Absolutely, you know, and I was aware of Krampus, the folklore, just because you know sometimes being on the internet, you do your deep dives and you become aware of those things. You know, and there are a lot of films out there, a lot of I don't even know if they would rate as B movies. A lot of really
D tier.
low, yeah, yes, exactly, like real low budget kind of Krampus takes out there, and you know, we see a lot of films that we watch and we're like, this has a lot of potential. There just wasn't a big budget behind it. I would love to see some sort of expansion, someone that, you know, can take a story and really have the means to do it correctly. You know, in being a huge fan of Trick or Treat, I knew Krampus was going to come out. Prior to us doing all of our podcasts and things like that, I was never really a big theater guy, so I didn't go to the theater to see this one. But as soon as it did come out on Blu-ray, I was really excited for it. You know, holiday horror is my thing, and then Michael Dougherty already had Trick or Treat, which is a, you know, essential Halloween viewing. So then, as soon as he was going to have his take at Christmas viewing, I was really excited to see what he was going to do. And honestly, you know, not to spoil anything, but this one hits all the right spots for me in terms of holiday horror. I think you really got something that is a lot of fun, and then I think this film itself has really helped Krampus become that holiday icon, like you're saying. Whether you've seen it or you know you watch it regularly, or you've only seen it, you know, it's on TV sometimes. I think you know there are scenes in here that stick with you. I think there's a lot of fun stuff in here. So when you do. When you are aware of Krampus, whether you love the film or just have seen some of it, or you're just aware of the folklore because, you know, you've seen some of the film and, you know, now it's out there in pop culture, I think this film has really catapulted Krampus to become that holiday icon.
Yeah, and I mean, like, this has been a huge thing, like, over in Europe for years. Like, this has always been something they've celebrated for a long while, and we're talking way back in the day. The icon itself, or just the kind of, I think it was back in, if I'm looking at my notes here, 1932, electorals in Austria prohibited the you know, the tradition, the Krampus tradition, and just the story under the Adolphus regime. Basically, they didn't want anybody to know anything about it. He was later deemed in that time period as the evil man because you weren't necessarily allowed to discuss Krampus. You weren't allowed to make him even well known. So it wasn't until many, many years later, you know, in these European countries, when they were able to kind of revitalize some of their culture and some of their history with Krampus, where they really started to kind of re-celebrate a lot of this stuff. And I've been trying to remember how to pronounce this, but I'm not gonna, I'm gonna butcher it. But just know that, no disrespect, but they celebrate Krampusnacht, but it's Krampusnachit. I can't say it. I'm sorry, but essentially what it is on the night of December 5th through December 6th, they dress up as there are people who go out in the streets. They dress up as Krampus. Some people dress up as Saint Nick. And they celebrate. They go and they do parades and they party. A lot of the businesses open their doors, and it's really just a lot of like a tree lighting ceremony here in the States. But Krampus, people dressed as Krampus will go from business to business, and it's again just kind of a nowadays it's more of just a fun, friendly thing. But even back in the day, it was supposed to signify to children to remind them of, if you're not a good little boy or good little girl, this Krampus demon could become real and could, come and steal you and take you away. Basically, he would take his little whips and he would hit you, and then he'd throw you in a bag and he would steal you from your family and take you back to his little cave, I guess is what it was. But it's very out there, very, very European, very interesting lore. But it's great to see that it still gets celebrated even today. Like it is one of those things where, as a goofy American, I'd love to go over and just celebrate Krampus Fest. They also call it the Krampus Run, is kind of what it's known as too. So it's one of those things where I would love to just go over and take part in it. Honestly, I'd love to do a lot of things over in Europe just to experience it for one time. But it's one of those things where Christmas in Europe has got to be a completely different feeling, different vibe.
Absolutely. And when you kind of do those deep dives into Krampus and that folklore, there's a lot of folklore surrounding that holiday season in terms of a lot of dark characters that come out. And I know it is kind of intertwined in this film a little bit. And that's what I love. There's just this expansive lore where, even the imagery that Michael Dougherty uses here for Krampus is fantastic. But then even when you do a deep dive on the internet and see just searching Krampus not attached to this actual film, there's a lot of expansive folklore here. And, I just love that being attached to the holiday season. Obviously, us being a horror channel, the darker you can get it is always more welcome. It's just versatile. You see this film, and like I said, it hits all the points. But then when you do that deep dive into Krampus, and like you're saying, Krampus runs and things like that, I really think there's even more of an expansiveness that you can really take the Krampus character and translate it onto film in a completely different story. And I know, we do talk about the legacy and maybe where we can see this going. So, I think we can definitely get into that toward the end of the podcast, because I think there's so much potential. Even though this is a great film, I think there's so much to do here in the world of Krampus.
Oh, absolutely. So why don't we dive into the world of Krampus with our first segment, which we deem as the account of the macabre.
They could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon drive became a nightmare.
As for those of you who have not celebrated a podcast episode with us in the past here, this is where we break down just the story. We kind of go just not necessarily beat for beat, but we just talk about it in general, our thoughts, feelings on everything, and really just dive into what the film has to offer. And yeah, this was a movie that came out in 2015. Again, we've kind of went over it in the intro. It was directed and written by Michael Dougherty, as well as Todd Casey and Zach Shields. It stars Adam Scott, Toni Collette, and David Korshner, and a ton of other people as we'll go through here. And yeah, this was definitely one of those movies that I would say was pretty big. But again, like a lot of really good horror, especially holiday horror, it kind of had the Thanksgiving effect, where I think word of mouth really carried this thing. Because you got to remember, 2015. This came out right before The Force Awakens. I'm talking like 2 weeks before The Force Awakens came out. And this was kind of the palate cleanser, the thing that kind of got people ready to go, got you into the Christmas season before everybody, went in and went crazy for Star Wars. So, for me, going to the theater to see this, I saw this like middle of the week after school. I was in high school still when this came out. I think, I was a senior that year, and I got out of school a little bit early. And I went and saw this. I was in a theater with me and two other people, and I was just consumed by this movie. I absolutely adored it. At the time, I think the only thing that disappointed me was the fact that it was PG-13, and I thought maybe they could go a little harder. But I was honestly surprised at some points with how dark the film got and some of the choices they made. And then just, it left me a little bit like, not as good as Trick or Treat, but I still liked it. But over the years, it's just grown on me.
Yeah, in this one for me, um, my love for Trick or Treat, had me intrigued for Krampus, and for me, I have trouble comparing the two because there's similar tones, but again, we're dealing with Halloween, and then we're dealing with Christmas. So for me, I was really looking more so for that film I can watch during the holiday season. So I was looking for those points that they were going to hit. And like I said, I think they do hit it. I love the idea. We can talk about the opening,
Mhm.
this kind of big fight in terms of kind of getting into that. There's an ideal holiday spirit of everyone's going to be together around the fireplace, sharing stories, having hot chocolate, and just really enjoying the family. But then when you open Krampus, it's more of a realistic tone. I think everyone's out shopping, everyone's angry because of the stress of the holiday season, and that obviously does play into what we're going to be seeing later on with Krampus. Showing up and this family dynamic with Max really wanting everyone to just be together and enjoy the holiday season, but no one really is, and being the catalyst to for Krampus to show up. I really love the take here where we're really focusing on just the family and the two different families that are being together for the holiday season. This really does, at the start of it, I almost equate it to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation for me, because I think they really do get that holiday tone right. Like, you're really actually watching a holiday film until we get to that horror aspect and Krampus shows up. So I really do love that tone, because I can almost lose myself at the very beginning with the way that this is with the way this is written and how it's kind of drawn out, where um it really does take advantage of feeling like a holiday film.
Yeah, and that was totally intentional. Going into some of my trivia here as we'll go throughout the podcast here. Michael Dougherty intentionally, he said he made it a point to make the first act of the film strictly a Christmas film. Your standard stereotypical getting the family together. The family is, divided in some stature with, some of them maybe it's class, maybe it's just lifestyle, and they do that all very well here. They do have an excellent way of kind of bringing all these people together. And then he says he wanted it to just strictly remain a Christmas movie before turning it towards horror and dark fantasy towards the second and third act. He really wanted to hit those tones, and I think he does. And because we saw Thanksgiving earlier this year, where a very similar style opening with the the Black Friday kind of horde busting through, as to where that one was very horror, very much up front with you, a little comedy, in that as well. But this one, it was more, again, like you said, played for those kind of National Lampoon vibes, very much that kind of, they're playing it to, I think it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. There's so many songs throughout this film that I get them a little confused. But yeah, they're playing that, and obviously you go from that to the play and everything, and you just get to see a little bit of the chaos that has consumed this family.
Yeah, and then as soon as we get into the fight with Max and the the one kid, was he dressed as one of the wise men, I believe,
Uh-huh.
right? Isn't that what it is?
I think so.
Um, and I love that aspect of it, because it plays in that tongue in cheekiness. I think where you're comparing it to Thanksgiving, where similar tones, but Thanksgiving really does lean on the gore effect, because there's some wild imagery at the very start of that film, where this one really does feel fun, jokey, and I think it plays into even as we get into those darker tones a little bit later. I think it plays in to at the beginning, that lightheartedness of the holiday season, and then kind of as we gravitate toward Krampus showing up, we get a little darker and darker. But I love the lightheartedness at the very beginning here, as we're anticipating the arrival of the other family, Tony Collette's sister's family, and as soon as we get that dynamic, again, I think it's beautifully intertwined, where we're kind of getting this juxtaposition of the one kind of more so humdrum family in a sense, and then we're kind of getting this very wild over exaggerated family, I think. And I think kind of melding those two together, especially during the holiday dinner scene where they're reading Max's letter, I think you can really see everything at play.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that they definitely hit all that really well. I want to talk about as we're kind of moving through here before we get to the actual like letter and dinner scene is just the introduction of Omi.
Yes.
Max's grandma and everything from his dad's side, and just kind of her character as a whole being kind of like our catalyst. She understands the lore. She knows exactly what's going on. She's really the one to shepherd the family at a certain point in this film and really let them know just what they're dealing with. And this is one of those things where it's like I do like the tender relationship that she builds with Max throughout this. And obviously, you got the older sister who's only obsessed with her boyfriend, very stereotypical teenager stuff. And nobody here is really breaking the mold as far as these characters go. We might dive into a little bit more of that as we talk about the cast. But it's one of those things where they are playing to a certain trope and they're playing it really well. And I mean, you do have an excellent cast here. I can't wait to get into it. But Omi was one of those things that I thought was really sweet and really grounded Max into that. Like, hey, love Christmas, love the holidays. It's great to be with family, no matter how much they drive us crazy. At least we have this. And she has a great sequence later on, but it's once, like you said, the other side of the family, the sister and her husband and everybody show up, and then Max's letter is discovered. I love this. I honestly, if you're thinking about writing something like this, a story where you have this kind of, ethereal demon, whatever you want to classify Krampus as, who is called upon. The idea of him being brought forth because a child rips up a letter out of embarrassment that he was writing to Santa Claus that's just trying to kind of bring his family together. It's a very tender and deep letter. And the fact that his cousins are just ripping into him. But I like that Michael Dougherty has the foresight to add a little bit of nuance there where as they're kind of reading the letter, you do see those looks and those glances from people of like, oh shit, he's actually right. Like, this is kind of sad. I think that that's all really wonderful setup.
Yeah, and you look at the film overall, and we're not, we do get into some character backgrounds and things, but we don't, these aren't characters that are going to be really dissected, and we do deep dives because we're more so dealing with the issue at hand of Krampus and his minions showing up. But I think that letter that Max has really does a great job of illustrating just the family dynamics of what everyone's going through, because between Linda and Howard, and we were just being introduced, and him mentioning that he wishes that Howard wishes that his daughters were boys, and wishing things weren't so hard for them, and then saying that he wishes his mom and dad could fall back in love. We're really just getting, like, it illustrates everything that we're understanding the relationships, everything in just that's accomplished in this one scene here, while we're dealing with the tension of them reading his letter and working toward that catalyst to him, ripping it up and throwing it away, and then Krampus showing up. So, you look at the story, and yes, it's nothing that's going to be a complete deep dive in anything, but Michael Dougherty is hitting all these points. So we're understanding the story and giving us just enough to keep us intrigued and understand these dynamics, so that once we're into this full-on horror, science fiction, Krampus showing up, all this stuff, we feel like we've gotten our fill of it, and we can be on board with these characters, and we're part of the family dealing with Krampus.
I agree. Yeah, and I think it's a wonderful setup. It is very cool because it's like in lesser films, it would be something kind of goofy. I feel like it would be some big bombastic reason why Krampus is showing up. But no, it is again, it's the hindering on just the age old trope of Christmas whenever it comes to Santa Claus or anything. It's belief, and I think like the big thing that I really like that Michael Dougherty had said here, going back to my notes, was in the trivia that I was able to find. He always envisioned Krampus as being Santa Claus's shadow. He's not the unstoppable monster that kicks down your door and rampages and grabs you. There's something darkly playful about him. He's having a good time doing what he does, and he enjoys the cat and mouse aspect of it. And I feel that 100%. And, I think there was a part of me when I first saw this film that really wanted that to be the film where it's Krampus, being a monster, kicking in the door, really chasing the family. And I think once, we get past the letter scene and the darkness rolls in, the snowstorm rolls in, which, we can hop back at any point if you want to talk about any of that. But I want to go to when the daughter goes to see her boyfriend and we see Krampus for the first time. Sitting in the theater and just hearing the sound of Krampus, and then just kind of having that camera pan over and you realize that he is right in front of you. There was nothing like that to me, man. Like, that was one of those things where I was like, holy shit, this movie is everything I wanted it to be. Granted, I had a little bit of criticism that has grown on me with Krampus in this, but I'll save it for later when we get to the effects section. But, I thought that intro for him was just otherworldly. I loved it. I absolutely adored it. Him on the roof, then him running. Even for it being CG for a good section of it, it looked great.
And that's where I think Michael Dougherty knows how to really use things to his advantage. When I, talk about, kind of these family dynamics, and when you look at Krampus and being CGI there, it's he's using it to illustrate Krampus's size and jumping from house to house, which has this kind of it's terrorizing in a sense, but also kind of lightheartedness to see him jumping from house to house. And I really love that unveiling of is her name Elizabeth? I'm forgetting.
I think so.
daughter's name.
The names they all escape because I call half the cast by their actors' names
Yeah.
because they're so recognizable. Because again, when we get to the cast, it's stacked in this
Yeah.
film for sure. I'll find it for you, but it's Beth.
Okay.
Mhm.
And well, when she's walking, the town is just covered in snow. It's a blizzard out, and for me initially, I didn't know what I was looking at until you notice Krampus right up there on the roof, and I'm like, what a perfect unveiling for me, because by the time you realize what you're looking at and you see the horns and you see the silhouette, you realize I'm looking at our villain here, and it's one of those things where he's introduced from so far away on top of a roof. It's not like he's right in front of you. It's while he's unveiled, he's not 100% unveiled, so you're still wondering. There's still an essence of mystery, and like you said, Santa's shadow. And I think they do such a great job of really hammering that idea home, where he's this kind of shadow, this darker version of Santa Claus. Of course, he's wearing Santa Claus's face in a sense, but I absolutely love that aspect of it, because they really it's not just a nickname. It's not just something they mention. It's something that they really illustrate throughout the rest of the film. And that unveiling of in the blizzard, him on top of the roof, jumping from one to the next, and kind of understanding how he works and being this otherworldly character, I just absolutely adore it.
Yeah, me too. And I think that it's definitely one of the best like unveilings as far as a Christmas horror creature goes. We talk about Gremlins at the start of the month here, where we talked about that, or the start of December to Dismember, and how wonderful that is once you start to unveil what those are. And then like the whole kitchen sequence and the sequence right before that with the eggs, and it's just so creative. And this is just kind of having another really solid way to introduce your creature, your monster, your antagonist here. And again, like kind of looking at this film from the aspect of not necessarily wanting it to be what I think I initially was hoping for, where it was the big monster that runs in and kills people and is being all gruesome and monstrous. It's like, no, it's very much this mythical figure who controls this entire world. Like, I look at it as when the snowstorm hits, it's like you've stepped into his realm. He can control everything. And I think that that's beautifully executed in his minions that start to pop up here, because Beth, she runs and hides from Krampus. We get that wonderful practical hoof shot. I love that. Every time I see it, it just sends chills up my spine, even though I know what's going to happen. And you'd think that he would just rip her out and kill her right then and there, but no, he drops that little what do you call this? A wind up box, the music box.
Oh, the Jack in the Box.
Jack in the Box. There we go. And it's really funny. I like it. I love how it's going, stop, and then the slow reveal of it coming up. It's like it's so good, dude. It's so creepy, and then to have it just kind of pull away. It's very Jurassic Park in a sense, where it's like, yeah, you get the gist, but it doesn't have to show you guts and gore to rip everything out.
Yeah, and I think this film has a lot of great tension because to build some tension with just the Jack in the Box going, I think is a lot of fun and really keeping as Beth is attacked under the car, it's still a lot of things are concealed. We don't know exactly what's happening. We just know that there's something under there with her. And as we go into Tom and Howard going out to retrieve Beth, and we have this thing under the snow attacking.
Yeah, the snow tremor.
Yes, I absolutely love that aspect of it because again, uh, we deal in so much mystery here. We don't know exactly what anything's looking like. We just know that there's something under there getting Howard, and how everyone throughout the film is completely like jerked away from as soon as they get into the snow. I absolutely love that idea of it, and Michael Dougherty and the writing team here really came up with a expanding lore, really putting it on film. And that's something when you're looking at holiday horror, I think you need that tongue-in-cheek kind of flavor to it. And I think Krampus really does hit that spot.
Yeah, and one of the aspects I like in that scene with Tom and Howard is when they get to the boyfriend's house and they're kind of looking through the wreckage and everything, and you get the first inkling of those damn gingerbread men with the one stabbed to the wall. Like I love all that. That's so creative.
And like looking at that, not knowing the context, you think someone broke in there and took a gingerbread cookie and stabbed it with a knife. But then when you really figure out later on what these things are doing, you realize, okay, well, this is someone was defending themselves clearly. And I don't know how you feel about it, but every time they go through that house and they're kind of looking at all the remnants of the battle that had taken place, I always get the Thing vibes of when they go over to the other camp and they're seeing everything that had happened. I always get those vibes that it must be the snow and everything, but I love that aspect.
Anytime they're outside in the blizzard, I feel that. I get that. I get a little bit of Shining vibes and stuff like that, like for the end of The Shining. It's like they really they hit you well with it. And I think one of the aspects of this film that I've seen some criticism of that I think actually works to its advantage is that people have said that they don't buy those outdoor like sets. They say that it feels very much like it's on a set. And I think that I actually look at it as we go into the context of the end of the film, and which I'll save, but I will say that when we get back to that, I think that it works wonderful once you see the end of the film and really understand the implications of kind of what Krampus can do and how I interpret things. So I think that it all plays to its strength because I think it looks great. I think that it all looks very solid. I was very surprised to look back at old reviews and say that people saying that it just like it looked like a cheap set outside. I'm like, really? Like that doesn't look cheap to me. It looks very nice. It looks very well put together. But I think I guess it's just different strokes for different folks, maybe. But I thought it all was very solid.
Yeah, and for me, I've never taken issue with it. I think maybe that's a little bit nitpicky for my taste, but I could be an apologist for Krampus. I don't know, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not. But for me, I've never taken issue with it. And when you look at it, I think like you had mentioned earlier, where you feel like you're in Krampus's world now, where I feel like as soon as those clouds move in, there is an otherworldly figure at play here, where we're not dealing with your just normal, average, everyday blizzard. This is something that is brought on by Krampus with his killer gingerbread man and his Jack in the Box that comes out and slithers around. I think at that point in time, you're dealing with a different universe, I think, so for that to feel otherworldly to you or feel out of the ordinary, I think that really does work for the film's advantage because, it really is. He's bringing the storm. He's bringing this blizzard with him. So it's not meant to, I don't think, feel like it's just your everyday blizzard.
Yeah, it's a spooky blizzard. But yeah, no, I feel you there. I like it. So yeah, as we kind of narrow that out, they fight the this snow tremor, as we're gonna deem it. Again, I think they hit that really well. Again, Michael Dougherty, I can give him a lot of. I could give him so many franchises. Michael Dougherty Tremors, maybe. I mean, it could be a
Hey,
lot of fun. Practical effects, like he would do well. I'm not. I'm
I'm
just
for
saying.
it. Let's do it.
we need
Anything to
to
bring Tremors back to prominence. Let's do it.
we need to get Levi back on the show and get their opinion on that. That would be great.
Absolutely. What he have Sean Gunn, didn't he? Was
Mhm.
his take? I think that's still a perfect take.
Oh yeah, but let's talk a little bit more about just kind of where we end up there, because then we get back to the kind of the Omi thing after they return. But of course, we do get formally introduced to the gingerbread men when they take the son. What was the son's name?
Howie Jr.?
Howie Jr. Yep, that's what it is. They take Howie Jr., which was always a scene that I absolutely I remember very vividly of them dropping the cookie down and him running up there and grabbing it. Which it's goofy, it's played for a little bit more laughs, but like just the concept again of these things, roping your son up through the chimney and taking him. It's like it's some dark stuff, and that's about when when Omi's like, okay, yeah, we gotta keep this fire going. We can't let she's been sitting there basically the whole time, I think, trying to keep the fire going. She knew from like square one when she saw the snowmen and the blizzard and everything, she knew what was going on. This video is sponsored by Full Moon Features. If you or someone you know loves horror collectibles, be sure to check out Full Moon's Tiny Terrors, the perfect gift this holiday season. For more information, click the link below or stick around till the end of this video.
Ho, ho, ho.
But she didn't want to be the one to call it until she absolutely had to. And then this is when we get one of my favorite sequences in the film. I think it's one of the most highlighted sequences of the film. We get this, this very, I guess you want to almost call it like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer style, Frosty the Snow, no, not Frosty, Year Without a Santa Claus style animations that kind of goes through and tells her backstory and how the first time she came across Krampus, and you realize that this is not her first go around with this creature, and that she at one point was also in a similar situation to Max, where she chose not to believe, and she chose to throw out all her beliefs of Christmas and Santa, and Krampus came to punish her by taking her family. And it's some pretty harrowing stuff. I love the imagery in this. I think that this is definitely one of the scarier scenes, just because it's in that different kind of style. And I think that it's gorgeous. I'm really curious. I could never get it fully cemented for me if that was done, practically, or if that was CG. I'd imagine it was a blend, but like I just could never find out entirely.
Yeah, I think there may be a video on it on YouTube. I don't know 100%, but I thought maybe I ran across it, but I don't think I watched it, unfortunately. I love the incorporation of almost the stop motion animation feel to it, where I think it mixes up the story a little bit, kind of gives it a different kind of flair. I could see people maybe having an issue with it just because it is a different tone than the rest of the film, but I absolutely love the I absolutely love mixing it up like that. And I think in classic Michael Dougherty fashion, it has that classic feel to it.
Mhm.
I love the look of it, the aesthetic that they use. And it really does kind of give you that deep dive into Omi's, background and how she's been so hesitant with everything. And I love that she's like our oracle in a sense, I think, the all knowing
Yes.
and giving us all the details of everything. So, I love that aspect of it because this did take place so far back in time for Omi. I think, to use a different aspect of it in that stop animation, I think was really well done. I think, it blends so well in terms of kind of almost putting a pause on the story at hand and taking us back and understanding the story of Krampus and how it has affected her and why she's so hesitant, and then almost hitting play again and picking back up into our particular instance with Krampus and, Howie Jr. just taking and everything. So, I think that was honestly needed. If this was more so live action in the tone that we've been seeing, I don't think it would be as effective as it is, as we do see in the Krampus film.
I agree. I think that it plays into something that I'll get into in my wrap up here a lot, but the timeless nature I feel that this film is acquiring over the years. Again, we're very big fans of this movie, but I do feel like there is a timeless quality to some of the segments in here, and this is very much one of them. This is a segment of this film that you could very much watch on your own. Like you could have this be a little short film, and it would play beautifully. I think it would get the point across of Krampus, and I think that we have to understand too that the point of what they're trying to do with this, like you said it beautifully at the start of this podcast, of just like this being like a modern day Gremlins, to where it's like you have older generations, younger generations all watching this. This is again a really wonderful on the nose, just like we're getting it out there. This is a great way to explain the Krampus concept to younger kids and really get them to understand. This is a film. I'm sure you feel the same way about Ella as I do Atticus, where it's like I can't wait till they're a little bit older, and we can just do a nice little double feature of Gremlins and Krampus, and really just introduce them to some great holiday horror, because this is one of those films to me that I think will resonate well with like a kid that's 7, 8, 9.
Yes, because again, it has its lighthearted moments where it does incorporate those moments of terror, but I don't think it's gonna be anything that's gonna keep a child up at night. It is like Gremlins, where there can be some haunting imagery, but it's something that's gonna stick with you throughout. Because again, if you're terrified in one instance, I think it jolts you back into maybe a lighthearted moment, something a little more fun, because intertwining the comedic elements here, and again, holiday horror, I think you have to have those wacky elements. I think you have to have a perfect blend of comedy. And again, Krampus absolutely does that. I know we're speaking very positive of this film, but it is a podcast, and we do when we pick these films, we're showing an appreciation for them. So yeah, we're probably going to be pretty positive on this.
Yeah, unless you're Spawn, then we'll be very critical of you.
Yes,
But no,
that
even
one was
Spawn
potential. That's what
had,
it was.
but even Spawn, we had some nice things to say.
Exactly.
But yeah, let's kind of get into the wrap up here so we can keep moving on with the show. But we go from there. You talk about haunting imagery. I think like one of the standout sequences is obviously the sequence that follows here. Not only with the demonic toys themselves, not the ones from Full Moon Features. No, they have their own little brand of horrific monstrosities with the teddy bear, the robot, all kinds of stuff. And of course, and I hope that you didn't forget, Luke, but we are getting a NECA figure for this. But the Jack in the Box creature, which has one of the best featurettes on out there for Krampus. If you are into special effects, if you're into any of that, look it up, because the assembly, the creation of this Jack in the Box monstrosity, and it being all practical, it's incredible. It's one of the ones where it's like when they announced that this was going to be a NECA figure, of course my mind wants a Krampus, but I'm also sitting here saying like that makes sense. It makes total sense why you would choose this one, because of all of the creatures, probably the most creative, probably the most unique. Like definitely this is very much a Michael Dougherty inspired monster. I've never seen anything quite like it.
When it's during its introduction, oh my gosh, where we're kind of concealed by shadows for a little bit, and then Stevie and Jordan are up in the attic. We don't know exactly what's up there, and then as soon as we see our Jack in the Box swallowing, I believe it's Jordan.
Jordan gets swallowed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we kind of see the splitting of the mouth, and all these rows of teeth. Absolutely haunting. I love these takes of, especially when we're up in the attic and seeing these demonic toys, really just hammering the family, and it's just complete chaos up there. But yeah, the centerpiece is easily the Jack in the Box, this oversized Jack in the Box, and I love how the little box is still attached to this giant monstrosity as it's trying to get into the vents and trying to get out. But I did not forget we were getting a NECA figure. As soon as it popped up on screen, I was like, I can't wait to own that thing, because just having this oversized Jack in the Box, we're establishing so much great lore. And like, yes, there's a lot of folklore attached to this, but Michael Dougherty and the team really did a wonderful job of attaching their own fantastic lore with these minions for Krampus.
Absolutely. And I gotta say, we'll talk more about them in Creatures Features, but like the little angel toy and all kinds of things, like so many wonderful designs. You're absolutely correct with establishing all this lore. But we immediately go from that. I believe this is when the house starts to kind of get overtaken,
Yes,
as we
the elves
see,
show up and
yeah, Howard, Dorothy, and I believe, is it Chrissy, or what's her name? Um,
the
Baby
what?
Chrissy. Yeah, Chrissy, baby Chrissy. The
Oh yes,
child's
that's right.
little
Yes,
baby.
yep,
They all get taken. They all get stolen by the dark elves. It's Dorothy goes out, just as Dorothy you'd expect going out. She's talking shit as she's doing it. And everything really starts to fall apart here, and that's when Tom and the rest of the survivors, I think at this point it's Tom, it's Sarah, Linda's still alive, and it's Max, and then that's
yes,
it.
yep,
Yeah. So they all head out towards the snow plow. Oh yeah, and Omi's there, but Omi decides to stay back, and we get, it's tough to say. I mean, I love kind of every moment that he's on screen, but one of my all-time favorites for Krampus coming out of the fireplace, and then the hands, you really get to see a good look of the
yeah,
Santa Claus face and the eyes behind it
and
and
the
everything.
tongue
It's
and
like, it's so good, and like just seeing him come face to face with her once again, which I should have mentioned this because it is going to be important here in a second, is that when Omi was telling that story, I did forget to mention that she was given a bell, which is also very important to the story here. But yeah, I love that reveal. It's unfortunate, but I think we're left to believe that Omi was taken by him and his demonic toys and his other little creations. And yeah, and then it's just the family fighting for survival against the snow tremors and all these other horrific monsters until it is just Max. Max is left alone.
we have that meeting with Omi, and what a great tension builder, the actually being able to see Krampus up close. And then, as you said, we move on with the other minions, and then we work our way back to Max having his meeting with Krampus. And I both of those for me are just so meaningful because we're really kind of getting down to that nitty gritty. Before it seemed um the minions are doing all his bidding, where now we're actually getting into Krampus, and it's such a wild moment, I guess, where Max is kind of pouring his heart out and trying to get Krampus to say, he's saying, no, take me,
Yeah, and that's
I
after, I gotta say, because I kind of misrepresented it now that I'm remembering, but uh this is, he meets Krampus before that. Krampus meets him, gives him his bell, and that's when Max comes to the realization that he created this because it's wrapped in the letter. So yeah, but
that's
as you're
right.
saying, then he starts pouring his heart out.
Yes, and then we kind of get into closer toward the end here of as the bell falls into the snow. We have I guess a gateway to hell is how I've always taken it. And as the image of Krampus grabbing Max and holding him over, this gateway to hell is just so haunting to me. But you know, it's almost fun because we're dealing with this Krampus folklore and this holiday horror. It really hits me in the feels. I think Michael Dougherty really hit a home run with this thing because we have all these emotions. Especially, I think that is the point where they all meet in terms of the wackiness, the terror, just this haunting imagery. They all meet finally as we have this standoff between Max and Krampus, and not really knowing the outcome here because when we watch these films, we're more so dealing with people being killed, or and now it's kind of like, is Max gonna get a chance to get his family back?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely the culmination of all of the tones, and then having him kind of fall into this pit of hell, and then this is the moment that really lost me when I first saw the film. I was so like, no, don't do this shit. Don't do this. Where Max wakes up in bed. And I don't know, how did you feel when you first saw that?
um I thought there was gonna be something more. I didn't
Mhm.
I for
I was
me,
hoping there would be.
yeah, I didn't think that we were gonna go into some sort of random dream sequence to say, oh, now it's wonderfully put, there's a bow on this and it's just Christmas morning and it's gonna be this happy kind of oh, thankfully that was all a dream. I was kind of waiting for that hook to be like, okay, there's got to be something more here because I don't think it would end this way.
Yeah, and I'm glad it didn't because it was definitely a moment in the theater there where I was like, "Oh, that's so stupid. Why would you do that? That's so like basic and dumb." But yes, as they're all downstairs, they're all doing Christmas morning. It's when Max unwraps the bell, and is all his family members start to exchange looks, and they kind of have this feeling of like, oh shit, everybody's starting to remember. And that's when the camera starts to pull out, and we realize that they are trapped in a snow globe on Krampus's mantle. And we see he's got this big old workshop, like a twisted Santa's workshop, with all of these globes. And yeah, it's a fantastic way to end the film. It really does that whole it's kind of a whiplash effect of no, you've ruined it, to then that's perfect ending. I love that. And it's an ending that now when I see Max wake up, I get excited because I'm like, yeah, that's good. But that first time, if you don't know what's coming, it can be very frustrating. It can be very much like, no, don't tell me this was all a dream. Like,
Yeah.
God. But yeah, how do you feel about that ending?
No, I think it's a perfect ending, to be honest. It's, one of those, as soon as we start, working our way through as we, work our way out of the house, and then we're kind of seeing something's not right. And then we realize we're in a snow globe. And then we just have Krampus's claw holding the snow globe as he sets it down. It almost gives me, for some reason, like Jeepers Creepers vibes, the ending of the original Jeepers
Oh yeah,
Creepers, where it's
no,
like in his
definitely.
workshop. I absolutely love that ending. I think it's terrifying. It's something that is absolutely unique, and it gives this otherworldly side of Krampus, where he is like Santa Claus. He's all seeing, all knowing in a sense. He can keep an eye on everybody. So for me, I absolutely love that ending. I think it was so smart for them to really end it like that, because I think Max besting Krampus would have been such a such an
Tropey.
academic, yeah. Whereas I love that, Krampus is kind of this, gets one up on everybody. So ending on terror, I think, is always a smart play. And it kind of leaves it open ended for what could be next.
Absolutely. And we'll get onto that a little bit more in the legacy section. I want to definitely circle back and talk about that whole snow globe aspect and kind of a lot of the theories that people have had, and the one that I subscribe to, getting back to that whole why I think that it's fine that the outdoors looks more like it's on a set kind of deal. All right, but why don't we hop into our next section, which we have deemed as Behind the Mask? Yes, folks, and this is where we talk about all of our behind the scenes information. We go through a lot more trivia throughout this segment here. Luke, I know you said you did a little bit of diving back into some of the behind the scenes here, not too much. I did quite a bit. But did you find anything in this that really stuck out to you as far as just behind the scenes information, lore, anything that you wanted to touch on?
No, I only glanced at it, so I didn't do too much of a deep dive. Nothing that really stuck with me.
Okay, so I really want to discuss kind of, the intents that Michael Dougherty had for this film. Obviously, we've said it earlier, is like, he wanted this to be very much a Christmas film, for the first half, and then a dark fantasy for the second half, and then him describing Krampus as Santa's shadow and everything like that. So it seems like and we talk about Michael Dougherty being an excellent pick for a lot of these films with a lot of different tonal shifts and things. But it seems like for this, he really was playing in a realm of confidence. You know how he played in Halloween, and with Halloween, the holiday of Halloween, with Trick or Treat in a realm of confidence. This, I get the same vibe, and you can tell that he is very much a lover of Christmas and a lover of Christmas horror, because he definitely strives for that. And I think that the impression that I got looking into some of the behind the scenes, listening to some of the interviews from him, was he really wanted to strike that balance of a very classic Christmas film from the 80s 90s era, and then having that modern dark fantasy approach. And that was something he really leaned into in the behind the scenes, was he wanted this to come off as less of a horror film and more of a dark fantasy film. And I think that he achieves that. And I think that that is one of the things when you look at the Krampus lore, when you look at everything, like that was the important bit that I think sets this film above so many other interpretations on film of the character.
Yeah, and I don't think you can play this one, straight in a world of, realism, where I think those realistic aspects are evident there, but you always feel like something's off. And I think as soon as you see those clouds roll in, as soon as Max rips up his letter, um, you understand, you're in for this otherworldly figure showing up. And I think you need that kind of that sci-fi element in there. And I think, he does definitely achieve that, obviously, with all the creatures and everything. But, this one, I think I'm surprised that Krampus wasn't tackled in the 80s, but I think, I don't think it would have been as efficiently done in the aspect that we get it from Michael Dougherty, unless we did it in 2015 at the more modern time. I think we needed that aspect to really kind of hone in on what Krampus is, get that feel, especially when you're dealing with that heavy folklore like that. And you could tell Michael Dougherty was having a lot of fun with this thing, because you look at Trick or Treat, and there's so much lore attached to that film, with those different anthological stories. But like you look at Krampus, where it's a straight narrative. But I think you could tell that he was having so much fun incorporating these elements of the science fiction, of this horror, with the gingerbread men, with the Jack in the Box, and with Krampus himself. Again, with that aspect, we'll dive into creatures features, but with the design of Krampus, you could tell there was a lot of love there.
Of course. And, there's a couple of elements, I want to talk about a little bit how he incorporated some of the lore here. One of the big ones that I found that I really thought was cute was the gingerbread cookie that's lowered down the chimney. Obviously it's attached to a big hook. We saw that it's a intentionally an old timey meat hook, because in the Icelandic interpretation of Krampus, they have the 13 Yule lads, essentially the things that the Krampus employs to wreak havoc on families and children who are bad. And one of those things is that he would have one of his minions, whether it be, I guess, a gingerbread man or an elf or of some sort, take a meat hook and drive it down the chimney. And he would basically steal all of the meats and foods smoking on the fire for Christmas. Yeah, that's again one of the big things that they wanted to incorporate, was a lot of this lore and this the fantasy elements that come into all the many years, and the anthology, or not the anthology, the mythology that's built up with Krampus over the years, and how they wanted to interpret it even in just the small aspects like that. And then you do hit it on the head there, where you talk about how he was able to kind of meld Christmas and horror, and Christmas and dark fantasy, and just how Michael Dougherty's vision was very clear. Because one of the other things in the trivia that I found was that Michael Dougherty himself describes the film as a darker version of a Christmas family film. Christmas movies exist in their own little snow globe, he says, where a clashing family, no matter how sick of each other, always manages to overcome their differences and live happily ever after. But what if the family's issues escalated so much that they sort of allow Krampus to seep in and out of their realities? So that again is going to play into kind of the fan theories that have spawned off of this, and my theory that's kind of spawned off of this, and just how this all works. But again, I love that his head was in all of this. And we're going to talk about some of the more technical side of the behind the scenes here, but like that's just some of the stuff when you're dealing with such an iconic mythological Christmas icon. It's like, the fact that he really thought about all this and then thought about how to tell the story, you can tell that there's so much care in this film.
Yeah, and this title Krampus, and I think those other films, that there's a lot of properties out there that have tackled Krampus, but they kind of just, that's what they stick with. It's just Krampus. But you can tell Michael Dougherty, did his research, wanted to bring a complete version of Krampus with a lot of folklore attached to it. And you get these little nuggets as you do these deeper dives, and you understand all this other folklore that is attached. That's why I think, this film is going to be the essential Krampus film. I can see other attempts, but I don't know necessarily if it's ever going to hit this way, because I feel like he did so much research. He really did his homework in this, and kind of really paying tribute to a lot of previous folklore, and really trying to incorporate that in here to tell such a complete story.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that, if you didn't notice this throughout, there were a few things I noted here before we get into kind of the overall specs of the film and how it did. But there were a couple things that I was able to find as far as if you look in the background of this film, I believe it's in the shot when right before Christmas dinner, where I believe is it Dolly or Dottie? She's watching TV, and you can see the movie A Christmas Carol playing on the television, which obviously foreshadows a very similar ending, in the sense of having all these spiritual, horrific Christmas entities coming to wreak havoc on their lives. And then there's also, if you didn't notice this, and I didn't, I actually went back and checked it out. I meant to tell you about this, but I forgot. Was that in the ending, when you're looking at all the snow globes, not only, and I wouldn't have noticed this, but Michael Dougherty's house is there, but the Psycho house is also in one of the snow globes. So if
This
you
one I
didn't know,
do remember now.
yeah. So I thought that was very cool, very fun. Again, him being such a big horror lover, it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, of course he's gonna slip in as
Yeah, those
many
Easter eggs.
references as he can. Yeah, it's wonderful. But why don't we move into a little bit more of just kind of the overall like performance of the film, and things that we want to know. So the movie had an initial release date of November 30th, 2015. And I believe that was to get it out just a little bit early, to kind of lean off of Star Wars a bit. But they had a lot of confidence in the movie, which, I guess it worked a little bit. This movie didn't blow anybody out of the water as far as box office goes. Like it made money, but it didn't make a ton. And it's one of those things where it's like, they initially had it there. They thought maybe, give it a couple more weeks ahead of Star Wars. But then I think it was within the last month, they decided to move it up to December 4th. And they wanted to do that really kind of like how they did. Oh God, what was the movie we saw with David Harbour last year?
Oh, Violent Night.
Violent Night. Yeah, they have that one come out the first week of December, which I always think is a plus, especially for a Christmas horror film. I think that works out really well. Obviously, there really isn't much they could do on the sense of, going up against Star Wars. I mean, that's just unfortunately going to be something that they always had to contend with, no matter what they did. But, the reception overall for the film was fairly positive. There was a lot of people who, spoke very highly of it. Many critics called this a quintessential Christmas classic. But then, of course, you had a lot of people saying doesn't quite have as much savagery as they were hoping for. It doesn't offer anything too unique. It doesn't set itself too far apart with some of the things that some of these critics were saying, which I don't know why they were saying stuff like that. But just so everybody is aware, as far as box office numbers go, in North America, it's in its first opening Thursday night previews. It earned just under $1 million at $637,000, which, not fantastic. Definitely not blowing the doors off anything there, but still pretty serviceable for 2015. And it went on to earn 16.3 throughout its opening weekend, which place it was ahead of Pixar, which this was something that I guess was a big point of contention for them. It was ahead of Pixar's The Good Dinosaur, which that was slated to be huge. Like, people thought that was going to be the next big Pixar film. That one didn't perform very well at all. And it was kind of sandwiched with that. And then obviously Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 was still out at the time, and it was still, kicking ass, taking names. So, it was one of those things where the film, it did at least earn its budget back within the first weekend that it had, because it was only made for 16 million. So it was made for 15 million. It earned 16 million, but it didn't do anything too crazy after that. I think it capped out around like 20 million, so it almost doubled its budget. It got close, but it's one of those things. I think it was like 23, but it was one of those things where, again, had they released another year, I think if this would have came out maybe a couple years later, this could have blown the doors off the place, in my opinion. But when you go up against the Force Awakens at that time, it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and this was before David Gordon Green's Halloween came out, and I think the horror space really got booming after that in terms of people wanting to go out and see these horror films. So I think if this would have come out just a few years later, I think this would have been something that it would have been a musty for a lot of people just to go out and enjoy during the holiday season. But I think honestly this one was playing the long game, where like you said, this was probably going to be a word of mouth kind of film, where especially a lot of films get that second life when it's released on Blu-ray or DVD. And I think Krampus is one of those films where it may be niche for a lot of people going out to the theater to see it. Maybe it looks intriguing, but not intriguing enough to actually go out to the theater and spend, the money for how many tickets and popcorn and things like that. But it's something where for a $20 Blu-ray, and I can watch this as many times as I want, I think this was going to be something that a lot of people were going to want to check out, because this is something that I think by the trailer and things like that, you can say this is something that I would want to watch every year during the holiday season to kind of get me in that space.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's something that as we kind of said early on, this did go out to get a release from Scream Factory. The Naughty Cut, which is an extended cut of the film, because originally, and I think this is a good time to bring this up, and then we'll kind of keep moving on, is that this was shopped around for years by Michael Dougherty. This was something he wanted to do right after Trick or Treat, but then that got shelved and everything. But when that had its kind of resurgence, and became a bit more respected, he started to again shop it around and see if he could get some interest in it. The big hang up for people, and it was totally where we were at the time, and like you said, the big horror boom had not happened again yet, was that this was being shopped around as an R-rated film. There was going to be a lot more gore. There was going to be a lot more death. There was going to be a lot more of that savagery that some of those critics said the film was lacking. But no studio wanted to pick it up. No studio wanted to take the risk. They were like, nope, you got to cut this thing down to PG-13. And he tried, and eventually Universal was able to convince Michael Dougherty to do it. I think it doesn't hurt the film too bad, honestly, seeing the Naughty Cut and that being technically R-rated. It's unrated, but there's nothing really there to add to it that makes it gorier or anything. Maybe the script that was originally there had some gorier stuff, but I think this film works beautifully as a PG-13 film. Again, it hits that Gremlins like level of intensity where it's like it's scary, it's fun, it's a little bit gruesome, but not too intense. Again, this is kind of that magic hour that you kind of hit with those creature feature holiday horrors.
Yeah, I don't think this film at all needs to be a rated R. I think, obviously us being horror fans, we would love some more gore, but watching this film, I was never like, this needs a lot more gore. I didn't come into this one really expecting that. I guess I was more so looking for a fun holiday horror with a wacky premise and some terror, which I think this really does hit the spot. So, if this had more gore, I don't know necessarily how it would fit, because especially with the ending and how, conceptually what we're doing here, I don't know necessarily if you need a lot of deaths in this film. It's more about the ride rather than this kind of, overlay of gore or anything like that. So, I think that more so the premise is the selling point here. It's like Megan, where I think that film works perfectly well as a PG-13 because, the premise there is wacky enough and you're steeped in the horror realm enough that it takes you on that ride. And I think, at least from my perspective, when you get to the end of Krampus, you feel fulfilled, from holiday horror, just from a horror perspective. I think it all does mesh well.
I agree. I think that there's definitely a line that they hit, and they hit it just perfectly. And it's just one of those. Yeah, I don't really necessarily need this to go R-rated. I don't think it would work as well. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I have for behind the scenes. That's everything I could pull up. I mean, I'm sure there's more information out there, but for time's sake and everything, why don't we move in to our next segment, which we call Everybody's a Suspect.
See, the police are always off track with this shit. If they watch prom night, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
And yes, we are here with the segment where we just kind of dive into the cast. Obviously, we've had a lot of positive things to say so far. I think every time that we dive into this segment, at least from what I remember a couple months ago, is always just like we couldn't help ourselves but talk about the cast. I mean, when that initial overview. But yeah, we really get to gush about them now. And again, I had said earlier that this is a very stacked cast. And Luke, I think you agreed with me there, sir. But yeah, I mean, you have names like Adam Scott, Tony Collette, David Kirshner,
Keckner.
Keckner. Is that how you say that?
I believe so.
Anyway, and then Konisha Farrell, obviously you know her from Mr. Deeds and all kinds of fun stuff there. She was on 2.5 Men. And even a pretty stacked voice cast with things like Seth Green, and he's been canceled now, but Justin Roiland playing some of the critters and creatures, especially the elves in the background. So lots and lots of fun stuff here. Luke, who's some of the bits you want to highlight here in the cast?
Oh man, I love the interplay between David Keckner and Adam Scott. I think those two, the dynamics between them, this the juxtaposition between the two characters and where they come from. Adam Scott as Tom being this family man, level-headed Eagle Scout, and then you have David Keckner as Howard, this just kind of bombastic, overly masculine kind of carrying his guns and Lucinda, ready to take on anything. I love their interplay at the very start of where Howard is constantly making fun of Tom, but then as we go throughout the film, Tom earns Howard's respect. But then, there are small things in here that I really enjoy, and I think it's so small that maybe it goes overlooked, where Howard, is making fun of Tom constantly, but then during the point of where Tom wants to go out to retrieve Beth, one thing that sticks with me is Howard just calls him T, and you can tell that even though that he makes fun of him a lot, I think that there's still a love there, as this kind of he does secretly like him, just to give him, just to call him T. It's something so small, but I think those two play off each other so well when they're out in the snow and just throughout the rest of the film. That for me is that dynamic steals the show.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I do love their dynamic. I love where their relationship goes throughout the film. And I think that it does go into, kind of their background is just kind of really crossing over into a lot of the same pools as far as just like who they work with. I mean, obviously, David Keck was on things like The Office. I think he did pop up at Parks and Rec at one point, and obviously we know Adam Scott was on Parks and Rec, and films like Step Brothers and stuff. They've all kind of played in those pools together, so it's like they definitely have a more natural chemistry. But one of the ones, the actress here for me, that obviously everybody knows her now, but at the time she had yet to do her kind of not breakout performance, but the performance that really got her on the map for a lot of horror fans, which was Toni Collette, and her performance in obviously Hereditary. But I think she's great in this. I think that she definitely does show a lot of her acting prowess as being kind of that older sister who's got to kind of put all of the responsibility on her own shoulders and everything. She's very sympathetic. And I do love her interplay with not only her sister, but her husband and everything too. I think that she's got a lot of really great tender moments between all of the characters.
Uh, uh, Tony Collette and Adam Scott as an on-screen couple is everything I want. I love their dynamic. It's nothing over exaggerated in any sense, but I love their interplay with each other. And Tony Collette, I think she has got a lot of great moments. Where her and her sister, Linda, are looking at the tree, and she's got she says, "You saved all the ornaments. You saved everything." She said, "Well, I think that's what Mom would have done." You kind of really get these heartfelt moments, and then especially when she's in the kitchen making dinner, and Dorothy's in there giving her a hard time, and she kind of loses it for a brief moment, where she is this level-headed mom taking care of the family, but she has those moments of where she really gets emotional for a lot of things, and then she tries to compose herself. I love the dynamic she brings, because it is this level-headedness, and kind of where I feel like she's the anchor of the family, which I think, you need that in that family dynamic, and a lot of moms tend to be. Toni Collette is such a believable mother, I think, in a lot of these films. So for me, she puts on a great performance. The character Dorothy for me is a lot of fun as well.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I love her. I think that everything she's in. I mean, obviously a lot of people are going to pull her from, Two and a Half Men as being one of those things that, no matter how old you were, I think in the mid 2000s, that was one of those shows that just like everybody has seen it at some point. It was on constantly. I think like every day in the summertime, like midday FX would have it on for like a 6 hour block or whatever. But like, yeah, no, she's wonderful. She's also in, I think I mentioned it already, but Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
And isn't she in Edward Scissorhands? I think
I
she
think she is.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't she? Yeah, so like those are all like films that will always stand out to me as remembering that she's there. She's a classic character actress who, just would pop up here and there. I don't think she ever had anything like huge as far as leading roles go, and she did unfortunately pass away in 2020. But it's one of those things where it's like always a recognizable face, and this is just one of those characters that you just know she aced playing. I think Dorothy is one of those ones that I always have fun watching her. I always love her no taking shit attitude, and just how she calls it as she sees it. I think it's just great. I love her.
Yeah, and probably not a good look, but when she's sharing her hot chocolate with the kids,
Yeah.
really, she's not an actor that is always at the forefront, but putting her in that ensemble cast really adds so many great elements to it. And of course, adding that Dorothy character here gives those moments of levity, especially when she's playing against someone like Omi. I think, where
Mm,
she's like this kind of stoic oracle, all knowing, whereas Dorothy's just this kind of wild, having a drink, doesn't really care, calling it as she sees it, raising a fuss, ready to shoot gingerbread men, evil elves, doesn't matter. So I think, well, we don't dive too deep into all these characters' backgrounds. We get just enough to really latch onto them and really feel like part of the actual cast itself.
yeah, and one of the actresses, Krista Stadler, she was Omi. She is actually an actress who was born and raised in Austria, so she does have a lot of very deep roots to this lore, and this history. It was very important to them to incorporate that and call back to it. She has popped up here and there in a few other things. Looks like she does a lot of TV work. But as far as films go, this is probably her biggest film to date. And then we have Allison Tolman as Linda, the sister. Again, I think she has a lot of great moments with Toni Collette. I've seen her in a few things, especially recently. I know she started to pop up. I think she was in one of the big ones for me was Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I mean, I watch a lot of the sitcoms and stuff, so I remember her being in there for a few episodes. She's a great comedy actress, but I know that she's been also crossing over into things like I believe she was in Castle Rock for the brief stint that I saw there, and then I remember her being also in a movie that we like called The Sisters Brothers. She plays a very tiny role in that. Just one of those recognizable faces that I remember seeing a couple times. I had to take a couple notes there for her. But the last person that I really want to touch on, and feel free to stop me and touch on any of these, actresses as we go through before we really dive into this character. But the last one that I really want to touch in is an actor by the name of Luke Hawker. Now, can you take a guess at who Luke Hawker is in the film?
Didn't play Jack in the Box, right? I don't know.
No, Luke Hawker is the man in the Krampus suit.
Okay, that was gonna be my
So,
second guess.
yep, yeah. No, I know it was definitely the fact that it wasn't somebody that we had discussed prior or anything, but no, he's a very well known stunt actor as well as special effects mocap actor, and this was one of those ones that this is a big role for him. I mean, say what you will, it's one of those things where you're not seeing his face, but the ability to carry himself in that suit and really bring that to life, I mean, that is dedication. Because I mean, you look at some of the stuff behind the scenes, like it's a bulky, it's a heavy suit, and he actually came in, put it on. It's very, very warm in there, considering the fact that you're throwing bags, and then he's got that big sack of stuff on his back, and he really committed. He put it on, he went through, he did all the makeup, all the hand prosthetics and everything. Like he really went for it, and I gotta give him some shout out and some respect right here. So
Yeah, I mean, stunt actors, they often play creatures, slashers, anything like that. Oftentimes, a lot of unsung heroes because they tend to be the centerpiece of a film, whether it's Jason Voorhees or Krampus. And they have to play that character believably, or else the whole film falls flat. And while Krampus is a centerpiece in a sense, he's almost treated like this final boss, where he has a lot of the minions doing his final bidding, and then he kind of comes in afterward, as very more ceremoniously, I think. And I think he really has that performance down, where it's like he's commanding the screen when we see Krampus and he's showing up at for Omi, or when Max is having a standoff with him. He really does have this commanding presence to him, and I think that does get attributed to the actual stuntman himself, because you need to be able to carry that presence with you. And I think you really do feel that with Krampus. And I think that's what makes this film even a little bit more special, is that commanding effort that he does put in.
absolutely. And I think it's now the best time for us to transition into our second to last segment, which we call Creatures Features. And yes, folks, this is where we love to talk about all the special effects, all of that good practical magic. And this is a great film for it. Because, this is one of those ones that it's all over the place. We've gushed about it a ton. And, we've already kind of talked a little bit about every single critter that shows up in this. So I want to kind of take a few minutes in this segment just to say, Luke, aside from Krampus, and let's be honest, aside from Jack in the Box, I think we can easily say those are probably top two as far as critters go in this film. We'll save those. I want to do a direct comparison to those at the end here, but what's one of your favorite critters, holiday monstrosities that they brought to screen in Krampus?
I'll tell you, it not practical, but the gingerbread men for me are absolutely, when you talk about hitting holiday horror correctly, incorporating the idea of these demented gingerbread men is absolutely one of the best things I take away from Krampus. When they lower the first gingerbread man down on that chain and Harry Jr. takes a bite of him, yes, it's comedic, but I absolutely love the expression change when you realize these things are coming to life, wrapping him up in the chain, and then he gets jerked right up the chimney. And then when they have the nail gun, absolute so much fun when they have the candy cane. And he's running at Howard. I think is so much fun. We have like the I guess it's the cream or whatever in his mouth.
Hmm.
It's kind of like foaming almost. Perfect imagery. I absolutely love it. I think they feel very much like Gremlins to me, especially when they're hiding in the gingerbread house and they're laughing and things like that. I think that is something you look at and you absolutely need in holiday horror.
100%. And I am just looking up something briefly here, just to make sure that there isn't some kind of like deemed name for this character. But I'm going, probably my favorite is going to be the teddy bear. I think is one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorites. He's only seen a brief couple of times, but they use him in so much of the marketing and so much of the like the imagery. I think he might be on my shirt somewhere. I know the angel is. Yeah, he's right here. Not to just like totally do it, but he's like right in there. You can't see him on screen, but he's there. One of my favorites. I love the imagery of that. I love the little angel. But I think the teddy bear has got to be like my favorite next to it. The little robot toy creature though is also a lot of fun. That's one of those ones that really feels like I guess the closest I would get to like a Puppet Master or
Yeah.
Demonic Toys. It has that kind of rickety, very wind up toy look to him, and I think that they executed that all beautifully. And again, there's a lot of really great behind the scenes stuff that you can find on YouTube of them just kind of putting these guys together and really bringing them forth. But yeah, I mean, I can't sit here and deny that those gingerbread men they are also extremely fun and catchy. But we got to talk about the two big set pieces here, man. And I think if we're gonna compare it, um, let's just do it. Are you who do you like more? Are you a fan of Krampus or are you a fan of the Jack in the Box creature more?
Um, it's a tough call. I think we see little more of the Jack in the Box character in terms of what he can do. So I'd say maybe I would lean a little more there because it's such a unique design. But Krampus, again, what a great concept of wearing Santa's face, having the chains wrapped around his cloak. Um, really well done. But for me, just because we see a little bit more, I think I'm gonna go Jack in the Box.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you that I think Jack in the Box is the bigger set piece, and I enjoy his look a lot more. But again, we see more of him, as opposed to Krampus. I think really truly living up to uh his namesake, his legend, his lore, his mythology that they tried their best to grab and get for this film. I think that he's excellent, and I think both looks are timeless. I think that there's definitely, again, another thing that I'm going to be starting to lean into is that timeless nature of these creatures and everything. And one of the things that if you go on to like legendary, there's a thing called legendary backstory. I found this. It's got concept art for a lot of these creatures. And you see that the snowmen at one point were supposed to become monsters. They were supposed to start popping up and having these like icicle claws and things. And the Jack in the Box creature was actually supposed to look more like a jester and be a little bit more thing like. Where some of the imagery that they have here, like I can screen share it because I already have it pulled up here. I just Google image search this one, but um, yeah, so we'll kind of run through some of these, but this is some of the concept art that they kind of were running through with this stuff. Like, I mean, clearly there's a lot of fun and cool imagery they had here. Again, the snowmen were more monstrous. This is Krampus's original look. I think they translated it beautifully. Obviously, he's a little bit more. Oh shit! Obviously, he's a little bit more monster-like. There, you can still see everything, right, Luke?
If you change pictures, I did not see. I still.
Okay, no. It's I went back to the stream on accident. So,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, then you see the gingerbread men were supposed to have a bit of a different design. everybody's a little bit different, but this is what I was talking about.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So
I would
yeah,
have loved to see. I'm assuming it was budget. Probably would have
oh
been a
yeah.
little too much, but like I would have loved to seen the gingerbread men or the snowmen come to life. I think that would have been fun to have a bunch of Jack Frosts out there with their icicles. So you can tell again, Michael Dougherty really had a great idea for Krampus and really establishing this lore. I know we do see the Nutcracker, I think, don't we?
Mhm.
He's in the bag, I believe, but again, there's so much here, there's so much established, but there's so much still to touch on that, obviously we'll get in the legacy, but I would really love to see them touch on some more of this stuff.
Yeah, and as now you guys can kind of see, I was trying to pull this up the whole time, but yeah, now you can see some of these more monsters up close and everything. Um, the gingerbread men, like, yeah, these are the designs they were going for.
I would have
Um,
loved to seen some disfigured gingerbread men. That would have been great.
mhm.
Like a melding of all of them.
Yep, here's some more designs for Krampus and some of the reindeer and stuff we were supposed to see, like running machinery in his workshop. This one especially is just haunting to me.
Oh, that's such a dark design.
I love
Absolutely
it.
love it.
Yep, and then we get you said the Thing vibes.
Yep.
There you go.
There we go. We're
Yep,
in it.
it's just so good. Like all of this stuff just was so excellent, and of course this is what we got. But I mean, it's one of those things that it looks good again, no matter really where you swing it. So it's like I can't sit here and complain. Like I loved it. I thought they did an excellent job. And yeah, I mean the creature designs they're timeless in this. I think that they're really gonna be like Gremlins. And I know the gingerbread men, they already look a bit dated. It's 2015. I think they look all right, but there are some sequences where they do look a little bit more goofy. But I think they can get away with it. How we discussed earlier in December to Dismember with the Gremlins with the stop motion scene, how that works for them. I think that the CG works fine for them. And maybe it's because I love both these films that I'm willing to let the stop motion go for Gremlins, that I'm willing to let the CG go for these. Sue me, okay? I like both of them. I think they look great, and it doesn't take away from me for the film.
I think tonally, especially with the gingerbread men, it works because they're already kind of lighthearted, demented creatures themselves. So even if they do look a little bit dated or noticeably CGI, for me, I still think it works. It doesn't take me out of the film. It probably adds to the charm for me. It's just like how you said with Gremlins. I think the only misstep here is when we're talking demented toys, there was no incorporation of Pinot. And I think that, of course, we're December to Dismember. We have to mention Pinot from Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, the toy maker. But that's the only misstep that Michael Dougherty had in this film.
I think I made a mistake, folks, by having us kick off our holiday Christmas stuff with the Silent Night, Deadly Night films. I think that was a bit too much. Pinot has scarred Luke for many, many moons. He will definitely be bringing him up. I know I had to fight him because initially for December to Dismember, it was going to be all Pinot all month long. And we were just going to basically be breaking down every sequence and scene from Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5, the toy maker with
Frame
Pinot.
by frame.
Yeah. So I've created a monster and I apologize for that. We're going to have to get there. I'm hoping we can do a big Black Christmas thing next year, but we might have to sideline for some Pinot action. I'll do my best, folks. So
25 days of Pinot.
I can love you like a real son. I can. I can. I can. I love you. I love you. I want you. I love you. I love you.
That's beautiful. Alrighty, guys, let's move into our last segment, which we call It Is Only a Movie.
Action to play this theater. This picture, truly one of the most unusual ever filmed, contains scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily upset.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating. It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
And yes, folks, this is our final segment of the show where we're going to basically just break down the legacy of this film, where it sits with us, and just kind of wrap everything up that we have discussed today. And as it stands, I think that Krampus 2015, this has really become a modern Christmas classic. easily can say that in the horror space. I mean, the last like 2 years of really sitting in the horror community and trying to be an active participant and member, as soon as Thanksgiving is over, and I mean, we might have had a slight delay because everybody was so high on Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. People were already lining up and saying it's Krampus time, baby. Let's go. At Krampus, the legitimate holiday that they start over, like I said, from the 5th through the 6th over in Europe, it gets huge shout outs, for that. And, it was one of those things where I had second guess, like, damn, why didn't we think of that? Why didn't we look into that to release this? But no, of course, this has to be the crescendo for December to Dismember for us. Like, I mean, this is really the big stuff. Like, this was our holiday horror of the season. Like, I mean, when you're talking, all the creatures are stirring. It's this and Gremlins for me as far as like the best holiday creature features. I mean, we've talked about some really great films with, The Blob, which, that's not a Christmas movie. You can watch that anytime, but it's still a fantastic film. And then Shin Godzilla, with having Godzilla -1 come out this year, but Shin Godzilla can still stand the test of time and still be a great monster movie. This is, if you're thinking anything within the last, I say 20 years, as far as Christmas horror, monster, creature, whatever the hell you want to call it, films, Krampus, Michael Dougherty's Krampus, it's A1. It's number one for me.
Absolutely. We look at Gremlins, and Gremlins is a creature feature holiday horror set around the time of Christmas. And Christmas, it is not the driving force for the Gremlins. Whereas we look at Krampus, the holiday season, Christmas in general, is the driving force for Krampus. And I think that's really intriguing here because, it kind of puts that emphasis on melding or horror or science fiction or folklore with the holiday season. And, it's always completely evident that it is Christmas time here. So, for me, this one gets bonus points here. This is essential viewing for the holiday season. And every time we go into December to Dismember and we're bombarded with a ton of holiday horror, and we're kind of doing our rating system and hoping we can get those holiday horror feels. When I watch Krampus, that's what I'm striving for. I'm trying to get some remnants of those feelings that I get when I watch Krampus, with the folklore that's attached, the imagery, the wackiness of the gingerbread man, the Jack in the Box, the great special effects, really taking advantage of the holiday season. And Krampus does that. It's such a well-rounded film. And so, this one for me, absolutely, I think in the horror space as well, this is essential viewing. It's something that hits all those points, and it's something that is going to be celebrated for years to come.
Absolutely. Now, with that, with our final thoughts really put out there, I want to talk about these theories. I want to talk about the stuff that I've kind of been teeing up the whole episode. And, Luke, I think maybe I should have prefaced this with you to get your point, but you know what? Raw reactions. That's the title of our review series on the channel. So let's just do a raw reaction here. So have you looked into any of this? Do you know what the fan theories are?
I know there are two. I know
Okay.
the two, I guess probably the only ones that I'm aware of are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're the big ones then. If you understand, because if you know there's two, then you know that these are the ones. So how I take this is very much, I think, more in line with the first one, the first of the fan theories, and just kind of how the ending is. And I kind of push it a little further, and that is that the Engels and their family are trapped in that snow globe, condemned to repeat Christmas morning for eternity in a twisted version of hell. And the reason that I think that if we take that theory and we go back to the whole, the outdoors, again, the nitpicky criticism of it looking like sets and looking very, produced, and the snowstorm in and of itself, even if that is just such legitimate criticism from you, but if that's the way that it's supposed to go and that's the interpretation you take, you could easily just say that once that snowstorm rolls in, the family's already trapped in the snow globe. That's why they don't see any other people. There is the DHL driver, but I mean, like, he's dead pretty much by the time they find him. So it's like everybody who did live on that street who got consumed by the snow globe are gone. They're dead. There's nothing else. So, like that's kind of the way that I would interpret it. And if you really want to lean on that criticism of the, the backdrops or the town looking a little bit more um produced, a little bit more sound stagey, I guess. Um that solves it for me because it's just like, well, yeah, they're in a snow globe. And so how do you feel about that first and foremost before we dive into the second one?
I think it's intriguing outlook. Ending on terror is always a great aspect of it for me. I could see it. It's not the theory I subscribe to. So I think it's definitely an intriguing thought, and there's definitely things to support it. So I like the how ambiguous the ending can be.
And with that being ambiguous, of course, there's the other theory. And this one is a lot of fun, and I like this one too. So for me, I can really take it either way. But they look at theory number 2 or the ending as they were given a second chance. The snow globe is Krampus. Wait, the snow and the snow globe is Krampus means of watching over them. Although writer director Michael Dougherty has refused to confirm which theory is true, the tie-in comic book Shadow of Saint Nicholas confirms that the happy ending is the true one. The comic has murdered the characters, restructured without any hint of a twist, showing that Krampus is willing to give people a second chance as long as they prove that they've learned their lesson. Unlike his grandmother, Max was brave enough to confront Krampus and proved he learned his lesson, which was why Max had his family returned and the grandmother didn't. Doherty says that the latter is cynical, albeit still possible interpretation. I think that, obviously the comic book, if you want to take that in as canon and do that, then that's fine. I know that a lot of people who watch this film are never going to read the comic book or really look into it, but I like that too. I don't mind that. I think that that's a much happier ending. It's a much more Christmas, style ending. But I also really like the idea of them being trapped in that snow globe, to live for all of their days on Christmas morning, and then to be basically as little toys to Krampus. He can kind of take you out and do whatever he pleases. I could subscribe either way. So Luke, is that the theory that you stick with there? The more confirmed one, I guess they could say.
Yeah, that's the one that I go with, more so. And I say ending on terror. And I think, being trapped in a snow globe to a certain extent is, has terror to it, but at the end of the day, right there, your fate has been confirmed. Whereas, I look at the snow globes as that portal that for Krampus to look in on those families. And I know there are a lot of snow globes in his little workshop at the end, but I look at it in terms of folklore and how long Krampus has been around. I don't think it's that many in the aspect of saying, I think those ones are the ones that have learned to get that second chance, but it is always that terror is still out there. It's like Michael Myers getting up at the end of Halloween, that the terror is still out there, where it's like, I gave you that second chance. You mess up one time, I'm watching you. Once that snow rolls in, I'm back for you, and I think looking at that, whereas, people kind of taking it, looking at the effect and saying, well, maybe that doesn't look real. I think, with Krampus comes his playground. So yes, it's an otherworldly aspect to it. So when you look at outside and it doesn't look 100% on like realistic, I think yes, well, that's Krampus coming in with the elves, the gingerbread men, everything. So everything's gonna look off, and where we're looking, he's always watching. It's just like Santa Claus with his naughty or nice list. This is Krampus with his snow globes. You mess up, I'm coming back for you, and you don't get a third chance.
Love it. I mean, either way you shake it, I love it. I think
Yeah.
that it's a great film. I think it's a great ending, and I think that it does leave you again with just like the ending to The Thing, which I'm always going to try to relate shit to The Thing, it seems like, but that ambiguous nature to an ending of a film, especially one that deals with such giant ideas like this, it works. It's how it should be. You should definitely leave people with a little something to chew on. And I think that Michael Dougherty, of all people, understands that, and that's exactly what he chose to do with this. And yeah, for me, man, Krampus is one of the best. It's by far going to be one of those films that I will watch every Christmas. I will put on every Christmas. And again, like I said, I look forward to being able to show this to my son and being able to, see how this film ages and how people talk about it as I get older and then we get about, as far as we are now. From when Gremlins released to this, it's like it's gonna be crazy. I'm excited to see, and of course, love to see Michael Dougherty come back and do more with this, just like we would Trick or Treat. I think that didn't he say recently with that whole Collider Trick or Treat show that there's more stuff he could do with Krampus. He just
Yeah.
doesn't know when he wants to do it yet. And I fucking hate you for that because he should just be making this shit, man. No, I love the guy. I mean, he's made 2 films that have absolutely impacted my holiday season for years to come, and I want him to make more. Do an
Yeah.
Easter movie.
There we go. Critters. But this one, for me, like I said, essential holiday viewing. I would love to see him back for Krampus 2. I think there's so much more you can do. Really open the world. Let the gingerbread men go out through town, just like how Gremlins did, and really just wreak havoc on a full town that's lost their Christmas spirit rather than just one family in general. I think you could really do a lot, really open this up. There's so much potential, so much lore to be expanded upon. I would love to see what other creatures they can bring in. Dylan just showed us a few that were never actually caught on film, so I would love to see that as well. There's a lot to play with here, so as I'm can't wait for Trick or Treat 2, and I hope at some point we get a Krampus 2 as well.
I agree. But alrighty, guys. That brings us to the end of the Krampus podcast, and it has been so great to be back. Honestly, I like these long form discussions, really diving into this thing. And we'll be doing more of this. We're definitely really going to try to hone this back in and get back in the saddle on these because I mean that's the whole reason we started this. I love the reviews, I love the screeners, I love the news, I love everything we do. The essays, I love making content for you guys. I love talking to you, but this is what we set out to do, and I think that we need to get back to it because this was a lot of fun. So if you guys enjoyed this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let us know what you think of Krampus from 2015 and just how you feel about it, as well as you've seen it a couple of times throughout this, but check out the Tiny Terrors. We're running a little promo with full moon features as we go through this month, and it's been a lot of fun. We got our full promo and review up on the channel now. And yeah, man, all the other December to Dismember content that is up. We talked about all those creature features I mentioned earlier, the Blob, Shin Godzilla, Gremlins, all of it in there. And yeah, it's just been a hell of a month, hell of a Christmas, and I'm excited to be here. And it ain't over yet because, obviously we got our nice little week in between now and the new year. But if you guys are familiar with us, you know that right on January 1st, we like to sit back and reflect and get you guys our top 10 of 2023, which I'm hard at work at right now. And we will definitely be getting that out to you guys at midnight on the 1st. And we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We're probably going to talk about what's coming in 2024. We're probably going to talk about some other big horror news. I'm crossing my fingers that because of all the teases and things that Robert Eggers will drop a trailer for Nosferatu. So if that happens, we might have to talk about that, but we shall see. So that's it, guys. That's everything. So I guess I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna let Luke have a little bit to say because obviously this is our big sign off for Christmas. So thank you for watching. Luke, take it away.
I think Dylan said it best, to be honest. I think we've had another crazy December to Dismember in the books here. Firstly, covering our Demented Santas. Now we have all our creatures restoring. I think it was fun, really diving deep into Gremlins, the Blob, as well as Shin Godzilla. A lot of great creature features, to be honest. And to cap it off with Krampus here is wonderful. A lot to look forward to in 2024. kicking it off, like Dylan said, with our best of 2023. So hopefully 2024 continues to be another stellar year for horror, as 2022 was, and also 2023. So a lot of great stuff. You got to keep it right here. If you haven't subscribed, please do so and give us a like, because we got a lot more great content, a lot of things that now that we've shaken off Fantastic Fest and Splatterthon stuff, and December to Dismember. Now we're gonna kind of re-rack and dust off some things that we've been working on. Some countdowns, some hopefully some video essays coming out that we both have some ideas for, and of course we got to dive into another short film here at some point. So keep it here with us because we got a lot more great stuff for you.
Oh yeah. And yeah, there's still a lot of stuff to come too. Still some residuals from this past year, things we've been working on. Sycophant is on the horizon. I promise we're getting close to that. And yeah, lots more. So keep it here. We'll probably be doing a kind of a check-in video with you guys to really get you in the details of what we're planning on doing. So keep your eyes out for that. And yeah, I mean, if you've listened this far, thank you for sitting here and letting us ramble. So alrighty, I think without further ado, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, Merry Christmas.